Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on Service Operations Management. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concept of customer experience innovations in hospitality. The learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners will be able to understand what do we mean by customer experience innovations in hospitality, what are the various importances of customer experiences, what are the various activities or the factors that have been undertaken for identifying the customer experience innovations in the hospitality. Now let's understand or we begin with our learning in understanding the customer experience innovations in hospitality. Service innovations or customer experiences plays a very important role when we deal with an hospitality industry. A particular customer, as we have seen that in a particular organization, whenever a particular customer approaches the hospitality industry, he expects that in a particular organization, the environment will be very pleasing. It will be a technological based environment. The environment will be very clean with a neat and tidy environment. It will have receptionist, and a receptionist will be welcoming a particular person with a pleasant smile. So that is the perception of customer experience. A particular service innovation is a part of a consideration wherein the customer is having a certain mindset or a certain pre-assumptions as to what he's been expecting from a certain product or from a certain company. So this is why innovation management is so important in a business organization. In case of an hospitality industry, it looks for how do we deliver a better product or a better service at a lower cost to both the customers also and to the businesses also. Certain types of organizations do outsource these particular activities or do conduct these activities on their own. And hence, when these particular activities have been conducted within the organization, such type of activities are called as the in-house activities. And when they have been given to some other organization, they are called as an outsourced activities. Now let's understand the concept of an hospitality industry with respect to the main processes. So with respect to the main process, the activities that can be initiated, that can be implemented in these particular considerations are 66% of the people they feel that they want to engage themselves. That is, they engage me in a personalized, authentic and an authentic, attentive way. So people are focusing as to how we can engage the people in a very better and effective way. And such type of percentage of time is being utilized for 66%. The 62% feels that they should hear the people. That is, the customer has a certain perception that 62% people feel that their voice should be listened. That is, they listen to my needs, empathize with my situations, and follow through. So accordingly, the percentage that has been given for listening to the customers is around 62%. Empowering of the people, that is what value addition they need from the customers or from the organizations are, they provide me with an opportunities and access to the drive my experience that they want. So that level is for around 67%. So for empowerment, they look for a certain consideration of around 67%. 65% of people or the customers feel that they should know the customer or they should know the people to whom the service has been delivered. That is, they know and remember me, my preferences and my needs, what have been associated and what does the customer feel or what does the customer like. So for identification of those considerations, it is very essential that the customer feel that once the taste, habit, and preferences have been communicated, the people must know, they must remember, and accordingly, only those services must be delivered. So that is the amounting to 65%. The next perspective is delighting of the customers or delighting of the people. So various delightful events should be created, and those particular creation of events that surprise the customers and exceed the expectations are amounting to 56%. So this is the consideration as to 56, 67, 62, 65, and 66 as what does the people feel about what the organization should look for the service delivery or the customer experiences that they want to provide. So in this way, the level of experiences and the level of expectation from the customer differ from product to product, category to category, and service to services. So satisfaction level of the guest refers to the how guests report themselves to be based on the scale of 100. So knowing your guest is very foundation, and to other elements and a requirement of delivering upon the next generation to a customer experience is essentially important to identify that how do we deliver a certain product actually to our customers and what do we actually deliver to them. Now let us understand what the various ideas of types that can be created in terms of a service innovation. So the first perspective that can be used here is the concept of incremental innovation. The second perspective is the disruptive innovation, and the third perspective is the architectural innovation. So in case of an architectural disruptive service innovations or the incremental innovation, we are trying to identify or we are trying to modify the business activities in a particular organization about how the services can be delivered in a very effective and better way, and it can be continued by the organization for the better effective service delivery in the long run. Now let's understand what are the various examples of the service innovation. The various examples of the service innovation that can be implemented are: number one is product use enhancement. So we must have a various examples, or we must have a various understanding about what are the various usages of a certain product and how enhancement can be created with the usage of a certain product in the business organization. The second perspective is we must have a proper maintenance plans. So there should be various maintenance plans into existence, which will always try to deliver and identify about how qualitative products and services can be delivered to the customers, and in what way we can create a better relationship between the customers and between ultimate end users. The third perspective is the customer support. So the support that we are providing to the customers, the way in which the customer service delivery is being undertaken, all those particular perspectives are the composition or the factors of customer support. So customer support that is being provided by the organization and the expectance of the customer support that we are looking or providing to the organization is an always give and take relationship or exchange of ideas, values, and services from the people or from the organization and from the customers is the third perspective. Information and education. So sharing of knowledge, sharing of information, and educating each other is the perspectives of the customers also, that is the consumers and the organization. So always the information must be shared between each other, and we must try to educate both the perspective. That is, if there is a certain default in a certain product, the customer must convey to the particular service provider, and accordingly, if the service provider is happy, or if the service recipient is happy with a certain product, then accordingly the service recipient must inform to the service provider about their happiness and satisfaction level of a certain product. The fifth perspective, warranties and guarantees. We must always try to connect and identify about how those particular products have been available in the business consideration and how it can be continued for the better consideration in the business organization. So that was the concept of warranties and guarantees, which we are dealing with, and we are trying to identify about how the effective service innovations can be implemented in the business organization. Now let's understand what the various operational innovation strategies or tools that can be used. The first one is upcoming with the entirely new ways of fulfilling the orders. So accordingly, we must have the various new scenarios or new considerations through which we can easily identify about how the effective service delivery can be undertaken to the customers and the orders can be fulfilled, whether it is a new order or whether it is an existing or the old orders. The next perspective that one needs to understand is developing an actual product. So when we need to develop an additional product and an existing product needs to be developed, then what various strategies can be implemented for the operational innovations, the changes that needs to be undertaken in the tools, technologies, manufacturing process and activities, all those things needs to be implemented, and accordingly, the new product needs to be developed and such services needs to be provided to the individual customers and to the service lenders or the users. The third perspective is providing the customer service. So in case of providing the customer service, we must always try to identify and see that what type of customer service the customers are expecting from us. And based on their perceived level of customer service, we must always try to provide a better, excellent, and qualitative service to the customers. The identification of customer service can be always done on an effective level on the basis of Cervical Model. The Cervical Model focuses on various 5 factors or the 6 factors which always identify about how we can perceive that, how does a particular customer perceive a particular service and what we are actually delivering a certain service to the customers. So there is always a differentiation between a perceived level of service and an actual service that has been delivered. And on those particular basis, the customer gives a certain feedback about whether he's happy, that is satisfied with a particular service, or he's unhappy, that is dissatisfied with a particular service. Doing any other activity that an enterprise performs. So apart from conducting a regular or traditional activity, the organization can conduct the other parts of a traditional or other parts of a traditional activities also. And from those particular activities, the enterprise can have various performance levels on which basis they can identify about how those services can be informed and they can be undertaken as a part of a profit margin or a revenue generation sources for the business organization. And hence, operational innovations are also important. And on those particular basis, these particular strategies, tools, or techniques can be applied. Now, let's understand and take an example of Microsoft's vision for hospitality. So in case of Microsoft's vision, they have various three levels of experiences or consideration in terms of the service delivery that is being provided to the customers. So this particular service delivery is always being provided on the basis of various platforms that have been undertaken for a certain consideration. That is, with respect to how do we deliver a certain product or how do we provide a certain product to a certain customers. These particular services may be really personal, seamless, or the differentiated way. So in case of a traveling agency, now these particular connecting consumer experiences across the traveler's journey. So the vision for hospitality of Microsoft is, when does a customer travel from one place to another place? For what reason he's traveling? What is the need, requirement, and desire of fulfillment of those particular products and services? Such type of identification of travel experience is required. So that is the perceived service of a personal nature. So for a Microsoft consideration, the personal service of a travel experience is being available with the customers, and accordingly, we need to identify what are their experiences across the traveler journey and what do they expect. In terms of a seamless, a frictionless journey wherein they are focusing on what services will be required for at that particular place. That particular services may be mobility, cloud connectivity, security, social presences, that is a connectivity, the productivity, and lastly, the data availability. So on those particular basis, the seamless services have been provided, and those particular services as to the data connectivity, as to the security, as to the cloud connectivity, mobility is been provided by Microsoft, and accordingly, the hospitality is being undertaken in a pure way or in a better way by Microsoft. And lastly, the differentiated service, that is related to the specialized product and services. So that differentiated services are related to the connecting the business networks for the improved performance. So if you want to improvise the performance of a certain product or business organization, then accordingly, the business networks and services can be created, and in the long run as well as in the short run, the various services can be provided for the better understanding or better feasibility of the customers for the product or a certain services. Now let us understand what are the various steps to improve the operational efficiency. The first step to improve the operational efficiency is we must know our operation. So what operation or what activities we are conducting, what are those activities that have been undertaken in the business organization. All those activities should be known to a particular individual, and only when those particular activities are being known, we can increase the operational efficiency of a particular product or a particular service that we are delivering to the customers. The second step to improve the operational efficiency is train, and train again. So we need to train the employees, we need to train the machinery, we need to train the managers, we need to train the people who are associated in the organization, and so on. So training of all the participants in the business organization is essentially important, and only then the operational efficiency activity or the level can be improvised and it can be created in a better consideration. Putting the people first. So always the people who are being associated with the organization, whether it is an internal part or the external part, everyone should be considered in a very better and effective way. And first preference or priority should be always given to the people. So when we put people first in the business organization, then only we can say that effective service delivery can be undertaken, and the operational activity that we are trying to undertake is always of an effective and considerable nature. Keeping an order fulfillment focus. So that is considering the situation of an delivery time. So whatever delivery times that have been associated in the business organization, we must always keep an order fulfillment at a certain focus level, and the fulfillment of orders should be in an effective consideration level, wherein always whatever orders that have been there, it should be timely delivered, and there should be no delay in delivery of those certain goods and services. The next step to improve the operational efficiency is improving the customer service. So whatever service that we are delivering to the customer, we must always try to improvise that particular service, and accordingly, those particular service should be always of a qualitative nature, which will always sustain in the long run and will create a pleasing environment for the customers and will give a satisfaction level as to what service he's been using for a greater extent or for a period of a point of time. The next consideration is removing the barriers to success. So whatever barriers to the success are there, all those particular barriers should be removed. It should be minimized, and accordingly, the operational efficiency activity should be conducted in a very better and effective way. So all the barriers should be identified, and those particular barriers, whenever their identification is being undertaken, the organization must try to aim to reduce those particular barriers, and efficient operational activities needs to be undertaken in an organization in very better and effective way. Raising the bar. So raising the bar as to the standards of the sales, profit margin, number of quantitative and qualitative terms, profitability, ratio, or market capitalization, and so on. So every bar should be raised accordingly, and accordingly, the organization should try to improvise the operational efficiency of the machines, of the men, of the capital that is being utilized, and so on. And lastly, reviewing the processes. So what all other activities and processes that have been undertaken in the business organization, every process should be reviewed, and accordingly, we must try to identify as whatever benefits that we have seen, whether they have been achieved or not, and how those particular achievement of those fulfillment of objectives are being undertaken in the business organization in the long run or in the short run. Now let us understand how can service innovations be improvised or it can be improved. The various steps that can be taken for improving the service innovations are establishing an online experience. So when we have an online experience on those particular basis or consideration, the service can be improvised in a very better and effective way, and the better service can be provided on the basis of an online experience. So if the online experience is very quiet and very effective on those particular basis, the service innovations or delivery can be very effective and it can be very qualitative in nature. Offer a customer loyalty program. So whatever loyalty program that we are offering or that we are delivering to the customers, it should be very good and it should be very considerable in nature, which will try to take into account about how a loyalty program has been organized, it has been designed, and it has been always delivered to a certain customer. Providing a customer success manager. So accordingly, every manager or every representative should be appointed for the customer, and accordingly, he must always try to focus on what customer delivery or what customer success we are trying to aim for, and whatever the delivery or the product that we are delivering, it should be always of an effective nature, which in the long run or the short run will be able to deliver a better understanding and better quality products to the customers. Redesigning the onboarding. So we must always have a strategic planning as to the redesigning of a certain strategies about how do we identify a certain strategy, how do we redesign the boarding and onboarding of certain clients, the purchase and sale of a certain commodities, and if the customer is for a repeated purchases, and then how those particular repeated purchases are being undertaken. Adopting the new support channel. So whatever new support channel that have been required for assistance in the business organization for creating and value addition for a certain product or a certain sales, all those support channels needs to be identified, and accordingly, those particular goods, services, and commodities needs to be delivered. Adding a chatbot to the website. So a particular chatbot can be added to the website, which will help to provide a certain assistance to the individual customers at the greater extent and certain level. And accordingly, the quick answers and immediate answers or the assistance can be provided to the customers at an early stage. So that is the concept of adding a chatbot to the website. And lastly, gamifying the pre and post purchase experience. So we must always create a certain experience of an augmented reality, which will give a good experience about the pre-purchase and the post-purchase decisions to the customers. And lastly, looking for the opportunities to be automated. So automation should be implemented in a very better way so that the customer's service delivery is very effective, and innovation as a part of a service delivery can be implemented in the business organization. So these are the various steps through which the service innovation can be improvised and a better service quality can be delivered to the customers. Now let us understand why is the service innovation so critical and important for certain firms. Because we always need to see that whatever we are trying to deliver to the customers, whether it has been effective, and how do we deliver the service to the customers in a very effective way. So we need to consider these 5 best practices. That is, choosing a right methodology to match their strategy, defining the goals, getting the employees on board as soon as possible, communicate, and lastly, remembering the operational excellence as a continuous basis. So if all those innovation strategies have been implemented, they are very critical and crucial in nature. And one organization should always try to see that how do we implement those activities in very effective level and in a better considerable environment. The operational activities are also in coordination with the consideration of a business organization in the long run as well as in the short run. Now let's understand what are the various activities that have been undertaken for the success factors. So the success factors is been based on the various 6 levels of activity that have been undertaken in a business organization. The first activity is identifying the new leadership. The second activity is changing the targets or the goals that have been associated with the business organization. The third activity that can be taken is new customer focus strategy. The fourth activity is the new technology that we are using. The fifth activity or the step that can be undertaken is the new procedures. And the sixth activity is the new employee skills. So the first and the second activity is always focusing on the concept of executive buy-in. So who are the executives or who are the people or the employees who have been associated in the business organization and how those executives are being appointed or they have been conducted. The third and the activity focuses on the innovation strategy and the technology that we have adopted. The fourth and the fifth activity focuses on the new operational practices and key performance indicator, that is KPI. And the sixth and the last activity focuses on employee skill building and continuous change. So How do we create a continuous change in the business organization? Now let's understand the various steps for implementing the service innovation. So the various steps for implementing the service innovations are implementation of a new technology, mergers and acquisitions that have been undertaken between the business organization, changes in the leaderships, change in the organization culture, and time of a certain crisis. So let's summarize or let's conclude what we have learned in this particular session. This particular session was focusing on how do we create a service innovations and how service innovations can be implemented in a business organization in the short run and in the long run. The customer satisfaction is ultimately important, and accordingly, whenever the customer is satisfied, we can understand and we can come to a conclusion that whatever service that we are delivering to the customers is always valuable and it is up to as per the expectation of the customer's delivery. So it is always necessary to see that whatever delivery that we are making to the customer is always qualitative in nature, and it is always providing the financial gain and benefits to the customers also and to the company also. So getting better at what a job at what we are doing is essentially important. And on those particular basis, one needs to be very clarified and simple as to what delivery we are making and whether it is beneficial to the customers also and to the organization also. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood what do we mean by customer service innovations in the hospitality industry. What are the various activities that have been performed in the customer service experience and innovations? And lastly, what are the various benefits of customer experience and innovations in the hospitality industry? I hope you must have enjoyed the learning in this particular session. We'll stay connected and we'll continue with our learning. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you.